Good afternoon. My name is Dan Ryan. I'm your host here on the Human Capital Connection, part of the Social Media Connection Broadcast Network. It's a pleasure to have with me today my guest, Matt Lowney from DaVita. Matt, it's good to have you back.
Well, thank you.
So how are things in the world of DaVita?
Fairly busy, I would say. We in the recruiting world, which is my entire world at DaVita, is still fairly busy. I think we right now have 150, 160 openings in my lane, which is the Southeast group. Most clinical, but we have a few operations and sales and kind of one-off positions like that. So still fairly busy. We're getting in, summer is our busy season, so we're getting into that. So not so bad, I would say.
Tell the audience just a little bit about what DaVita does,
Sure.
and then I want to talk about candidates and what you look for. Tell me about
Sure.
DaVita.
So DaVita owns and operates about 1,500 outpatient dialysis centers across the country. Have about 30,000 teammates. We don't call them employees, we call them teammates. And I oversee the Southeast, so we have about 400 centers and about 6,000 teammates in my area.
So you're responsible for making sure that 6,000, give or take, you have the right people in the right seats at the right time.
In the right clinics, that's correct.
So when you're doing that, I'm assuming you're dealing with a wide variety of positions. Tell me about some of the different roles you help fill.
So kind of top down in a clinic would be an administrator, then charge nurse, clinical coordinator type people, kind of nurse managers. Frontline nurses, we have dietitian, social worker, and we have administrative teammates in the clinics, as well as some very dialysis specific type positions you train anybody to do. We have to train for like reuse tech, which is somebody who cleans the dialyzers after use.
So obviously in working with that wide variety of roles, there are certain things that you're looking for, certain absolute do's and certain absolute don'ts that candidates should be aware of. If you were to give a list of some of the absolute do's, what would those be?
Well, I would say this, and I think a lot of companies are going to this point, that they're very culture-driven organizations. So DaVita is one of these. It's very culture-oriented. And one of the things I like to ask in an interview is, all right, what about our core values do you like? So I want folks to have done some research about the company, and oddly enough, also about their role within the company. So I'm a really big fan of people who've done the research. I have no problem with people bringing notes. They brought with them questions that they've got to ask. So, I guess if you want to put it in a do list, do your homework. Make sure you understand the role. Make sure, if you can, get some background information on whoever you're interviewing with, me, an executive, somebody like that, so you can have some idea of their role within the organization. I don't like spending half of my time explaining DaVita, my role in DaVita, how I work with the candidates to get positions.
Sure.
So make it easy on me, I guess, would be the biggest do.
So if you look on the flip side, what are the 3 or 4 most important things that a candidate should never do in the recruiting process?
Well, we have a lot of clinical teammates who we hire, so a lot of folks come to us in scrubs for interviews and things like that. I'm not a big fan of that. I feel like regardless of what you're interviewing for, you should at least come prepared, business professional, suit and tie, if you can do that. So that seems fairly obvious, but something in the world of clinical recruiting we have an issue with. So make sure you don't just kind of come in right out of work if you're in scrubs or something like that. Don't waste our time, I guess, if you want to put a don't behind it. Don't sit there and ask me all mundane questions about benefits. I get a lot of people who get right into the weeds from the get-go, and they want to ask about what's your PTO, if you park downtown, what's your parking reimbursement policy. So I get people who basically want to distract me. I don't know if they're nervous or if they're, what their situation is, but they want to ask about mundane stuff, and they don't get to the higher level of their fit into the organization and their understanding of DaVita and the role.
You talked about doing research. I have a story that I like to tell. Maybe a couple of months ago, we were going to meet with a potential client in another part of the country. And I'd done some background research on the person we were meeting with, and I noticed that this person had graduated from both the University of Tennessee and the University of Alabama.
Oh,
it was an interesting mix. The person, I felt like they just should be half orange and half red. But anyway, I walked in and introduced myself, and I said, I don't know whether to say Roll Tide or Go Vols. But what that person recognized, even though they smiled, they said either one's appropriate. They knew I had done my homework.
Yeah. And you would be surprised, it's kind of the interview part. Most corporations have some HR recruiting person, and then they get escalated if they pass that to either the hiring manager or someone else that will be in more of a decision-making role. not so much you need to research me or the guy in HR or the gal in HR, but whoever you're interviewing with, understand their fit into the organization. What does a regional operations director mean? What does that job do within DaVita if that's who you're interviewing with? A lot of people don't understand our org structure, and you can get research. I mean, LinkedIn alone can find half the people that you will ever interview with, so you can at least know a little bit about them, learn about them.
So if you're going to share just one more golden nugget with this group to let them know something that's going to differentiate them as a candidate, what would that be?
Personality and preparedness are the two. I'm going to take two instead of one. I mean, it's still true that people hire based on first impression. As much as we fight that, they have an idea of who this person will be, and you need to come in and be sharp and be presentable and be prepared. So those are the two things that universally impress people.
So if I were going to take that and put it in the Southwest mold, hire for attitude, train for skill.
And yes, that's exactly right.
All right.
Cool.
Matt, it's been a pleasure to have you again.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Again, it's Dan Ryan here with the Human Capital Connection on the Social Media Connection Broadcast Network. Thank you for joining us today. We hope to see you back again soon. Take care.